everybody. The clock just struck 9 o'clock, so we're going to go ahead and get started. So first of all, good morning and happy Computer Science Education Week. Welcome to the virtual panel for secondary students. My name is Joni Aim, and I am the Southwest Iowa Regional STEM Manager. And I'm going to be the moderator for the panel this morning. And I also want to shout out to my colleague, Matt Steer, who is the Southeast Iowa Regional STEM Manager, and he's going to be helping out this morning by monitoring the chat for questions and other issues and keeping us on time. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here, you guys. And hopefully you are able to see my slides. So on behalf of the Iowa STEM Council, and the Iowa chapter of the Computer Science Teachers Association, the Iowa AEAs, and all of these awesome partners that are listed here, I want to thank you for taking the time to join us this morning. This panel will be recorded and available for viewing later on online. So if you're joining us via recording, welcome to you as well. I'm going to kick off things this morning by showing a quick 1-minute video that really kind of sets the stage for why we are all here this morning.
I think it's just necessary for where we're at in society today.
It probably has some of the best job security there probably is right now.
If you want to make the world a better place, this is the best time in history to connect your thoughts to technology.
I don't think anyone would have an issue finding a job.
They're well-paying jobs. They really are. It literally makes you more valuable as an employee.
It's definitely paid off.
Computer science field is growing at rates that we've never seen before.
Well, we all carry technology with us everywhere, and computer science is the foundation.
Oops. So that is just a little teaser.
Vacation home.
Sorry.
You always have the whole place to yourself.
There we go. That's just a little teaser. There is a full 5-minute version of that video that'll play at the end of this panel as time allows. So before we get to our awesome panelists, as everyone is waiting for, I quickly just want to make sure that everybody's aware of all the events that are planned for this week. This is the first of a series of 6 virtual panels that will be taking place today through Wednesday. Thursday evening, there's going to be a virtual family coding night. And to wrap things up on Friday, there's going to be a mini performance of the Nutcracker Ballet that will be both live streamed and in person. And it will be accompanied by some STEM challenges to go with the performance. So it'll be a really cool opportunity. For more information on any of these events, please visit iowastem.org/CSEdweek. And I will also ask Matt, would you put that link in the chat for everybody? And then the other thing that I want you guys to take note of is on that same website, you will also be able to find an amazing list of quality, curated resources for Computer Science Education Week. So if you're an educator looking to do activities with students or parent, you can search by grade level, activity type, and audience, just to name a few. So please take a second to check those out. All right, so now the part we're all waiting for. This morning, we are joined by 4 very gracious professionals who are working in computer science careers right here in Iowa. So please join me in welcoming Benu Abraham, Javon Timmons, Scott Walker, and Jeremiah Evans to the panel this morning. Thank you so much for sharing your time with us. I'm going to ask them to introduce themselves and what they do here in a second, but I want to let our audience know that we will have time for questions. And as you have those questions, please feel free to stick those in the chat. So good morning, guys. I'm going to start off by, again, asking you to introduce yourself, where you work, and kind of what you do in that role. So if you don't mind, just kind of going in the order of your photos here on the screen, I'll stop my share so people can see you as you speak. So Benu, if you want to start us off.
Hi, everybody. My name is Benu Abraham. I am an embedded software engineer and an architect at, I work at, it's a startup based in Atlanta. I work remotely. My company's name is Flock Safety. we develop license plate reader cameras that are used to detect stolen cars or any cars that are needed in the criminal activity. Right now, this is previously, just as my journey, I started as an intern at Motorola, where we actually created the first Android cell phones that, and then moved on to creating one of the first Android credit card machines that you see. Actually, if you go to Starbucks, you will be able to see these credit card machines they're no longer like the 3-line display with black text on top of on the screen. They are more like colorful animations. So those are the ones that my team created. And then, like I said, currently I work at Flock Safety, and this has been one of my really rewarding career because the mission of my company is eliminating crime. So we really get to. I do get to tell stories where we rescued kids, we rescued elderly people who were lost. We apprehended criminals who had lots of guns and all contraband devices in their things in their in the vehicle when we catch them. So that has been a really rewarding job.
Awesome, thank you. Javon, would you want to go next? Again, just who you are, where you work, and a little bit about what you do.
Yeah. Hi everyone. My name is Javon Timmons. I'm a junior software engineer and scientific architect. I work for Bioneos. They are stationed in Iowa. I am, however, in Florida. I'm a fully remote employee. And a little bit about what we do at Bioneos. We work with various companies and projects to kind of help streamline, whatever processes they have. Sorry, I'm completely blanking a bit, but we work with several companies in the area to help them facilitate their programs and kind of just see their vision out just from the tech side of things. I'm sorry about that.
Oh, you're good. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Scott.
Hi. Are we getting me? Is my mic working? Okay,
Yep,
cool.
you're good.
I'm Scott Walker. Like Javon, I'm an employee at Bioneos. We're a software development company. We focus largely on the healthcare field. We do things like telehealth and organ procurement. And I'm I'm an entry-level developer. I just started a few months ago. This is kind of my first in major position. So that's been great.
Very cool. Thank you, Scott. Jeremiah, again, just who you are, where you work, a little bit about what you do. There you go. Oh, now you're muted again.
Okay, it keeps bouncing back and forth. I'm not sure why. My name is Jeremiah Evans. I'm a director of research and technology at Xeris. We are based in West Des Moines. We're a technology company. We've been in business for over 35 years now, and our role in the tech space is as a consulting company primarily. So we have clients from small, medium to even Fortune 500 businesses, local, state, federal government, and we help with their strategic projects. And whether it's they don't have the internal knowledge base or they don't quite have the bandwidth in terms of their tech stack to be able to complete a particular project, we're able to step in and assist them completing those projects. Our primary practice areas include things like identity governance. So that's the whole, let's say you've got 5 or 6 applications you need to log into and you have to have accounts for all of those. How do we streamline that and simplify that to make sure that you have the access you need when you need it, you don't have access you shouldn't have. Things like integration, so making all different systems work together, data analysis, data engineering, a lot of data. We're very much a data-centered company. But yeah, I've been working here for just over 10 years now. Before that, I had a student job doing contracting work for Thomson Reuters up in Eagan, Minnesota. And yeah, that's me.
All right, thank you guys. So one of the things I was going to ask you about is some of the problems that you tried to solve in your work, but you pretty much all kind of touched on that a little bit. So I'm going to ask you, what's a project or something that you've been involved in that you're particularly proud of, that, solved a problem, or it helped somebody in a way that, you want to like to share with the students that are watching? And I'll let anybody take this one.
I don't mind stepping out.
Sure.
Like Scott mentioned, we do work with a company that helps with organ procurement. And one of the things that I found kind of a full circle moment for me, there's a hospital here in Jacksonville where I am. UF Shands, where I was born. And just recently, I believe, we help, pretty much one of the things that I help with, help them streamline their process in organ procurement. And again, full circle moment for me, being born at Shands and then turning around, 30 years later, being able to help them in whatever process that I can was super awesome for me. So yeah.
That is a really cool story. Thank you.
I can, coming from, from my company, I mean, like I was saying, there were multiple stories that we, really helped the community. And one of the things that really stood out for me, this is a story that actually shows the power of technology and how you actually can help. So we had a case where, a little kid was abducted and was, and then she was released, luckily, and she had a description of the car. And the car was like a white car, a white SUV, whatever. So then when the police searched for this car, the person who had abducted this kid had already spray painted the car into a red car, but then they were able to search for a white SUV in that area for the last 3 days, and they were actually able to find this particular car, and they were able to they were able to arrest this person. So it shows the power. It doesn't matter, the amount of the technology that we have. I can put this into the police department can put this into the car and into the software and say, I want to find, a white car, maybe a white SUV with this characteristics, and the software can pull out, all the cars that match these descriptions. And so this shows you the power. Even though the car is now red, right, they could go back and find this car and be able to rescue, kids who must have been, would have been hurt by this person if he hadn't been, if he hadn't been arrested. So.
Wow.
Cool. I have another one kind of related to the data analysis as well. So I wasn't on this specific one. This is another team at my company, but we were able to work with a local hospital who primarily serves some of the more underserved neighborhoods. And so a lot of their revenue is coming from like Medicare and Medicaid claims. People come in who can't pay, and so they need to reimburse that from the state. And so what we were able to help them do was to analyze the way that they were submitting those claims to Medicare and Medicaid. So whenever you submit an insurance claim or any claim like this, there's always codes, different medical codes that describe the procedure and the illness and everything that goes in. But the thing is that, doctors are doing this usually as the patient comes in. So they might say, okay, the patient is presenting with these symptoms, so those are the ones they check out. But then later in the exam, they might say, oh, actually you're pregnant, and so this needs to be, they get that information, or it's some other illness, or some illness or something like that. But the order that those codes are entered will oftentimes impact the way that that's billed. And so what we were able to do was help them analyze where their claims were not being coded correctly. They were kind of being coded in order of the way that they presented in the appointment, but not actually in terms of what was the primary issue that they had. And so we were able to help them to basically go and resubmit these claims for millions of dollars worth of funding that is, again, able to help them to provide these incredibly necessary services in these underserved areas. So again, it is that the data is there, and anytime we can streamline things and automate things, people aren't good at data. We're just not. We're good at interaction, and we're good at human relation. Machines are very good at data. they can process through so many things and make so many connections so quickly. So anytime that we can automate those pieces, I think we've got a very successful. That's kind of the through thread I've heard from all the other examples too, is we're able to streamline those processes so we can let the machines do that busy work and let people do what they're good at and kind of live their lives.
Scott, did you have something you wanted to share?
Right. I mean, I was going to say the organ procurement software as well. I think it's without having like the Shands connection with that, it still is just significant to me as a person who especially was in the hospital system with some health issues a lot growing up. The idea of optimizing that sort of process in any way means that you're just going to be able to save more and more people. And so when it comes to the fact that like there are about 100,000 people waiting for organs at any time, if we can increase those numbers in any way, then you're saving like meaningful lives, and that's really cool. Sometimes it can be important to like recognize that little improvements that we make here could possibly result in just that an extra person, you know. And so I think I try to keep that in mind as I work on this project consistently.
So it was something that I heard from all four of you was that the impact was human, like you're helping people, even though you're doing computer science, you're definitely helping humans, and that was impactful for you. So I saw some questions come through on the chat, and some of you are answering, but this is one of the questions I had as well. And Scott, I'm actually going to start with you because you said you're just recently started and you're just entering your career, but I'm going to ask all of you, what kind of education training did you guys have to arrive in your position?
Sure. So I graduated with a bachelor's in computer science at the University of Iowa.
And did you have any like internships or experiences that helped you, like, you know, this is really what I want to do?
No, not in college, not specifically. I mean, I was just constantly working. It was really the first internship I ended up getting was sort of at this position here, and ended up moving into a full-time.
Awesome. Anybody else?
So I did my, so I had a little interesting journey to where I am. So I got introduced to computers when I was in my junior year. And that was the first time we ever saw computers, first of all. It was like, about in 1990s. And then I got really hooked on, like, you know, imagine this is the first time you've seen the computer. We were asked to create a hangman game. We just knew very basics of it, but it was really, really fun. I remember my friend and we were partnered, and we worked through the entire recess. Like, all we talk about is like, how do we design the screens? What music will we play? I mean, this is just like the old, you know, the Windows DOS thing with like just black and white. You know, it's like nothing fancy, right? But it was really, really interesting. I mean, it really hooked me on. But then what happened was things changed, and I didn't do my bachelor's in computer science. But one thing I have to tell you is that computer science is all about logic. You don't have to have, you know, you don't have to have like a lot of like background information. Like if you're doing electrical or physics, you have to have a lot of you have to learn a lot of stuff before you get to, you know, apply that. But computer science is basically logic. So even though I didn't do my bachelor's, I was able to do master's, but I had to do like a couple of courses, a few core courses as my prerequisites before I can do my master's. But that was easy because computer science is all about just logic. So you can think logically, you can do computer science. You don't need like heavy math, you don't need heavy physics. You know, I always tell my kids, computers is like a superhero who can do things faster than us, things that he can do, you know, more accurate than us. No, don't get tired. And computer science are people who are learning a language that we can talk to these superhuman or super, you know, heroes. And so I did, so, you know, I was able to do my master's degree, but, you know, just a few core bachelor's like requirements. And then I interned at Motorola, and then I was there for Motorola for like almost a long time. And then I moved to other companies from there.
Jeremiah, do you want to tell us a little bit about your education?
Sure. So I went to Iowa State. It took me a little bit longer than normal to get my undergrad. I did end up graduating with undergrad in software engineering. But when I first went to Iowa State, I knew I wanted to be in the engineering program, but I also knew I wanted to go to Iowa State because of the band, specifically the Iowa State University Cyclone Football Varsity Marching Band. Go State, go State. So, I thought, all right, I like science, I like math, I like Legos, I like planes. I'm going to be an aerospace engineer. 2.5 years later, I was not an aerospace engineer. I didn't have the passion for that, and I really that I'm a smart guy. No, that stuff was just kind of over my head. But what it did do for me is it introduced me to this lovely little language called Fortran 90. Formula translation or formula transformation. It's one of the earlier languages, and it was used for computational fluid dynamics. So literally learning how to program the simulations of how an airfoil works in flow. And kind of similar, like that wasn't necessarily the first thing we're programming. The first thing we were programming on it was a command line interface to play Minesweeper and then tic-tac-toe. So it's similar to the Hangman game. But I had those my freshman year. I'm like, this is great. This is cool. I'd never been exposed to programming like that before. I talked to my advisor. I'm like, hey, is there more of this in this degree? Because this is really cool, and that's what I want to focus on. He's like, oh yeah, sure. There's a bunch of that. There wasn't. There really wasn't. But by the time I realized that aerospace was not the thing for me, Iowa State had just started their software engineering program. So I started there, and kind of the rest is history. I got my 2 intro courses out of the way, was able to get a student job. I mentioned on campus, they only required that you had been enrolled in the second of the intro courses to apply for the position. So then January of 2009 started there, and I was doing development and testing work for a massive legal database, basically, and then graduated in 2012. So I had about 3.5 years of experience already just working as a contractor, and then all the education. And so then it was a pretty natural fit for me to move over to Xeris and just hit the ground running.
So even though the aerospace wasn't what you ended up doing, it introduced you to something that led to what you wanted to do.
Exactly. And then, that's one of those things that I probably hung on to my aerospace program longer than I should have. I was like, I'm going to be one of those who just sticks to one major. But, people change their majors all the time, and the advisors are really, really good at helping you switch over. It's, you figure out, oh, maybe this isn't exactly what I thought. You can change your mind. Like, it's not too late. Just find what you have a passion for, because you're going to be good at that. Even if it's not where your primary talents are, you're going to be good at it because of your passion. You're going to work on it.
Yep. Great advice. Javon.
Yeah, I did my undergrad was in biotechnology, and then I switched over and then I'm like, nope, that was not what I wanted. And
not at all.
Switched to computer science. Yeah, I totally agree with Jeremiah. Follow, your passions. No, you can always change your major.
Yeah. For me, I don't have any actual formal education. I did, however, graduate from Coding Bootcamp back in October 2020. That took about 6 or 7 months, a very rigorous program. Afterwards, it took me about 6 months after that to land my job here at BioNeos. And to follow up what Manu and even Jeremiah stated, again, no formal training was needed. What I found was find a passion and find a way to be, the best way I put it is to be passionately curious, right? Like, as Manu stated, it's all about logic. So if you have a passion and you can marry that with, the drive to just understand how that works, you will eventually find your way in this field. There's, you can apply computer science to a breadth of industries. If you're passionate about something, 9 times out of 10, there's an engineering job somewhere in that field. And again, as long as that passion tries to, drive you forward, that's the only training, quote unquote, I needed. The education I learned from the boot camp was, again, just the logistics of everything and how everything works. And sometimes, you always have to be learning. And that's something that I've learned to appreciate and something that I strive to do every day, while I'm working. But yeah, that's pretty much about it.
Well, I like that you guys had different paths. Like you all came from different places and have a different path, but you kind of were able to find something that you're passionate about. Matt, I'm going to throw it to you. Is there anything coming from the chat that we want to throw out there to these guys while we're having a transition here?
Yeah, and I think maybe we know the answer to this, but one of the questions was, is the job worth it? Is it worth the stress, the work, the effort to make it go?
Yeah, I can take a stab at this one to start anyway. I think it depends on a couple of factors, and a lot of it has to do with where you work, who you're working with, and what you're working on. If you are being respected and you are being compensated, then this, and it's something that you believe in, then the stress is absolutely worth it. Most of the stress that I experience on a day-to-day basis is it's creative stress. I'm problem solving, right? Like Benu said, like Jevin said, it's logic. It's okay, I need this to do this. How do I get from A to B? And how do I get from A to B in a way that the person who takes over after me is going to be like, oh, wow, that's a simple, good way to do it, and not, wow, what the hell was this guy thinking, right? So it's that creative stress of, all right, I can see the pieces. What do I do? What do I do? A little testing, and then it snaps into a solution. And so the reward of that solution, that's what brought me into it. It was, I type a couple of lines, I run a couple of commands, and all of a sudden, this thing is doing what I told it to. And I've been able to see, like, that's what drives me in my. Now there are, I will say, there are definitely jobs that are not worth the stress. So like, be aware that there are places that are going to say, oh, yeah, it's a nice 40-hour week job, and they're going to ask you to do 60 to 80 hours of work to accomplish that in the 40 hours, and you're not going to be compensated for it. So there are negative stressors that are not worth it, but the stress of problem solving, definitely worth it.
Yeah, I would agree. And to kind of piggyback off of what Jeremiah said, something that I did not realize before I got into the field is that programming is can be, a very, isolating activity, but it's extremely collaborative, and it's also maybe not be as artistic, but it is incredibly creative. In this industry, there are tons of ways to do, one thing. It's just a matter of, again, how you go about doing so. And the stress that you may find, like Jeremiah said, is just more creative stress. How can I solve this problem? I have the tools at my disposal. Just how am I going to use said tools to get what I want? And again, as long as I want to highlight the most, it does depend on where you work. Because again, if you do have a nice culture within a company that allows you to have, how can I put this? The time needed to solve those problems. There are companies out there, which again, by all means, that is kind of, by the numbers, and you can find that in any industry. Sorry, and with that comes high stress, and that works for some people, it doesn't work with others. I myself, I love and appreciate where I am, and yeah, it all depends on honestly where you are.
And one perspective I can give is, like, even though one really good aspect of computer science is the flexibility of your job. I think maybe not, like, I don't know that I can speak for every single computer science job, but I can say the majority of the computer science jobs are really, really flexible. So when I really appreciated this when I had little kids, when my kids were little, like, I could take off, I'll just let my manager know, my team know that, hey, I'm going to be out for maybe an hour or two because my kid is, has like readers theaters in elementary school, and I would just go over there, and then I can always come back, because computer science, you can get your work done anywhere, anytime, right? As long as you get your work done, it doesn't really matter where you are. So I could log back in maybe after I come back from my kids' activities. I'll come back and log in and finish my work. So that flexibility was really, really important to me, and it was really helpful. And I've been working. So when my husband, took up a job in Iowa, I used to work in Chicago, and my company just let me work remotely. So we moved. I didn't change anything. I worked for the same company. So I've been working remotely for the last 11 years.
I have a little bit of a follow-up to add from the chat as well. A lot of you have been kind of talking about, sort of the ebbs and flows of the work days. That some days you've got big projects you got to finish in 60 hours. The question, I have two questions, and I'm going to combine them a little bit, but how true is it that there's sort of these doing extra work to kind of meet the minimum standard, or is that the standard? And then if you're interested in computer science, like how much of this should you be kind of doing in your free time to kind of develop skills?
I mean, as far as your free time, I would definitely say that probably, like, that is something you should be thinking about, asking yourself probably a daily question of like, am I programming? Am I putting words on screen? I know for me, at least, like out of college, I didn't really have a lot of side projects. And so I set a minimum of 30 minutes a day. And that was a pretty like low bar to meet. But it made sure that every single day I could be getting off work and making sure that I'm working on a side project, So in my case, it was just like, making little chat apps or making whatever. But I do think that, little bits of daily work, you should never view them as just like, I didn't get anything done, because you're just constantly letting that little increment go.
I mean, computer science, I feel like, it's changing so much, right? Like we have seen from 2004 to now, right? Like nobody uses land phones anymore. I mean, there's big changes. Like what will be self-driving cars in another 10 years. So things are changing. This is a field where it is changing a lot. So that is one thing that you have to be careful, is that you have to be keeping up with the technology. You have to learn. But that's a fun problem though, right? If you're passionate about it, actually learning, and you have like these little creative stuff. I would even do like little apps with my daughter, which is like, hey, let's do a weather app that will tell you what kind of clothes that you want to buy, to wear. So those are things that, it's actually, even the learning that you do on the side, it can be like really fun because you're creating something. You can see it come, alive, and while you're doing, what you write some lines of code and then you see it happen on your screen. So it's pretty rewarding, even though it's like something you're learning. I think it's pretty rewarding as well.
If I may, Matt, to reiterate the first question, is the standard to do maximum effort for minimum effort? What was it? I'm sorry, I couldn't catch it.
I'll actually add a little bit of follow-up to that one as well, because I think there's two things. One line of question came in that, is there sort of an extra level of effort that's typical in the field, or is that just sort of an ebb and flow? And then I'm going to add to it, because a follow-up on that particular topic just came in, is that we're seeming to talk about stressful jobs, but are there sort of slower paced jobs or projects that happen within either your fields or others that might be of interest?
I think that all depends on where you work. If you work for a company that has tons of projects, it's a matter, I think, of asking. Hopefully, it is just a matter of asking about different projects, and maybe the stress level or the contribution that's needed might not be as high. And when it comes to doing a lot of work, again, there are ebbs and flows. I think the standard is, at least where I work, right, it's more focused around features or bugs. And again, like I said, it should be a collaborative effort. So as long as you're communicating your efforts and doing what you can to solve said problem, as we stated, it's just all about logic and critical thinking. That could take a day or two, just to solve one bug. But again, because these are complex things, right? Like this is what you're getting paid to do. Take pride in the bug that was solved, because again, if you didn't do it, who would, right? And so, I think it's for me at least, it's getting used to and appreciating your own pace and understanding that everyone learns differently, and as long as you're continuing to strive to learn and understand, again, being curious about what you're doing, I think everything else tends to work itself out.
Yeah, and I think to kind of follow up on that too, it is really an ebb and flow, and I think if you're working for a good place, and this is kind of why it's important to take internships, but also to get involved with professional communities so that you can talk to people who are working in different places to get a feel for the pace. Because yeah, some people really thrive in a very, very high pressure environment, and some people don't. And so being able to kind of get a feel for that, like, for example, here, basically it's 40 hours. We don't do on-call stuff. We're not on overnights unless there's a particular need and something that's kind of negotiated ahead of time. So we can expect, okay, this weekend I'm dedicating because we've got a prod release and, we just want to be all hands on deck or something like that. Or, I've pulled all-nighters before to get code done because there was a deadline, and I knew, kind of to that point is like, if I don't do this, then it's not going to get done for the client. Nobody else is going to be able to do it. But that also wasn't the constant expectation for me. So it was a place where I could say, you know what, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and go above and beyond here, because in general, that wasn't the baseline expectation. So it was something that I could put forth as some extra effort to just get this done and really make that customer happy. So really it's that negotiation and just kind of making sure that you're keeping tabs on it and becoming aware of, for yourself, what environment you thrive in and what your pace is. For the learning thing, I also want to bring up, there's a couple of different, I say a couple, there are many, but different like newsletters and things like that. They'll just be like synopses of tech from around the industry. So like one I subscribe to is called TLDR. It's meant to be a daily 5-minute blurb, basically, where it'll give you headlines and it'll give you approximately how long each article is to read. And it'll be things from, everything that's coming out of the Twitter shakeup with new ownership, or some research on new form of radiotherapy for cancer, or whatever. But it's these little articles about different things in the tech space, and it just gives you the headline, a little synopsis, and then this will take you about 5 minutes to read. This one's about half an hour to read, so you can kind of find what interests you, and from there maybe then you can say, all right, this was a really interesting read and they talked about this technology, and then you can focus and say, I want to learn that. Like they're talking a lot of stuff is being done in Rust. Okay, I want to learn, I'm going to go through a Rust tutorial to figure out what's going on there, or whatever the case may be. So that can be another good way to just kind of keep abreast of the changes, because like Benu said, it changes daily. Even only being here for 10 years, the stuff I was doing 10 years ago versus what I'm doing now are oftentimes very, very different. There's always something new coming out.
So keeping in mind that our audience this morning is secondary students. So kids entering high school and soon to be off on their career paths. How do you think that computer science is going to impact them as they enter the workforce? And also, so the impact, and then also what advice would you give them, a student that was interested in computer science, of maybe trying to get their feet wet and trying some things as they enter the workforce?
Let me take this one. I am also a robotics. I coach a FIRST robotics team in Johnston, so high school. So let me talk first about the FIRST robotics. FIRST robotics is it actually grows with the child. It starts at kindergarten and then it goes all the way to high school, and there's like different programs and different challenges that you can do. So I teach kids who are in high school, and they get this if you have, like, I would say for any kids who are interested in CS, reach out to see whether there is a FIRST robotics program in your school or run by any of the volunteers. So in this program, the kids actually get to design the robot from scratch in CAD. So they do a computer-aided design. So they draw everything on the computer, they design it, and then they build it they build the robot, and then they program it using Java. And we use Android. So you right away, you're programming in a language that is used on any of the Android phones. And then they also get to learn, machine learning, camera vision. We created our own, model to recognize images this year using Google has, because they have made available this technology to FIRST. So the kids were able to actually train a model to recognize images by themselves this year. And then, so it's a really, really great opportunity to be involved in a FIRST program. And then there are also other clubs that I know in our high school. We have Hyperstream and TSA. Those are, again, two other clubs that I know, teaches computer science things. then the other one is my son is a senior and he takes he takes computer science classes at Drake. So look out to see whether there are any any universities near you offer more advanced, if you want to do more advanced computer science classes. That's another option. And then there is another one that my kids were involved in was Mark Cuban does an AI boot camp over summer. It is sponsored by different companies. So I live in Johnston, so we have Corteva next to us. So they did the summer. They had a not in summer. It's actually the school year. I think it started in like October, I think. So they had 4 weekends where they spent time working on this AI boot camp where they learned, the different aspects of AI. So that would be another opportunity.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I think Devin mentioned doing the code camp as a way of, which is frankly awesome. And it kind of highlights we all kind of came to this different ways, but however you get your education, you get your education. There's really no difference. There's really no wrong way to learn this stuff. I have heard rumors that the Iowa Code Camp is coming back, hopefully within the next year or two. It's something I attended. I want to say I attended 1 or 2 as a college student, and then presented one of my first years here. But I believe they were open to high school students as well. So that's one opportunity. But looking for those code camps is definitely a great opportunity too, just to kind of go get some hands-on, see what different people are doing. You can also look up the user groups in the area. So there's an Iowa Oracle users group, an Iowa Java users group, an Iowa Data Engineers user group, and you can kind of get connected with what the companies are actually working on. And usually there'll be different presentations on, hey, this is something we're doing in my company that's kind of cool. And so it can kind of give you some exposure to what companies are actually doing, which is not always something that is able to be communicated in technology class.
And if I can, I'll speak to the impact, right? How it's going to impact them entering the workforce. In this day and age, right, there's nothing that does not use technology or computers in some way. So with that understanding, right, find something, again, that you like or have fun with, and you can make a career out of it. Again, it's one of those things that, I'm pretty sure it was, coined, it could be, the second language, just in learning how to interact with computers. And again, I don't see it reversing in any way. I think it's a great field to get into, to at least be knowledgeable of, at the very least.
Right. Technology is only going to become more and more prevalent within all these other fields. So I know even a good friend of mine that I went out through, grew up with, he's working in IT now, but in high school, we both made Lua scripts for Roblox growing up. And so his scripting, though, he used to automate an internship that ended up getting him a job. And so he talks about how it was just learning how to use a little bit of computer science, a little bit of scripting to automate some of his processes made him really stand out in his internship. And it really made a lot of his work and the work for his coworkers a lot easier. It's realizing that you can use this science and apply it to other things. What else can I automate? So it's only, it's it can't hurt, and it's only going to make you more valuable, and it's probably going to make some things easier for you.
100%.
Yeah, and actually, if I could add maybe a slight reverse on the question then too, not so much how it's going to impact you, but how you're going to impact us. So we need your ideas. We need your passion, and we need your human connection. One of the things that sometimes gets lost, especially we get really focused on problems and then we forget the people behind them. I don't think that's true for any of the panelists here, but that can be definitely, because like I said, our first examples were all these are ways that we were able to help people with technology, right? But unfortunately, sometimes in the industry, you do see that where the problems and the technology kind of gets put ahead of people. And with that, technology is going to be everywhere. There's a really, really interesting book called Weapons of Math Destruction that is all about like how black box algorithms that have done a lot of like model training, but not necessarily a lot of human review on the results, end up with very bad outcomes. So like multiple companies, for example, like Amazon, were like, hey, we want to be able to hire, I think Amazon and Google both fell into this trap. We want to hire people that are going to be successful. So we're going to train these models based on the resumes of the people who already work for us. And what they ended up doing is, even though they cut out things like they didn't have the name, they didn't have gender, they didn't have the specific college, but even with that, the machine learning models were able to determine when applicants were female and rejected them a disproportionate amount of the time, because they were thinking of this problem and not thinking about the people. Like, we need, especially like the younger generations, you guys have an incredible capacity for connectivity and human connection, and we need that to make sure that and you need to be aware of what goes on in the computer science. So even if you don't get into a computer science field, that you're at least aware of the sort of things that are going on. So you can say, I don't think this passes the smell test, right? So you can identify that, and you can be vocal and be like, this doesn't quite fit right. So it is going to impact every corner. So we need people to be educated and aware to make sure that we are keeping an eye on, where people are maybe not paying attention to the human factor, and making sure that we are making them pay attention to the human factor and supporting human flourishing, not just, doing, oh, I've got this problem, oh, I got this really cool technology, but really supporting human flourishing, making it a human-centered field. We need you.
You guys, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to add to Jeremiah. I don't know how many girls there are in this panel right now, but just like Jeremiah is saying, we need that connection. We need because this is going to impact our life, because you can see the technology is going to be, impacting. Like, for example, you would even think of, like, it's going to affect things that you don't even think will be related, right? Like, just search for coffee printer in Amazon, and then you will find these latte machines that can actually print those cappuccino images from an image from your phone, right? So that's where technology is going to be. Like, coffee machines that we make is going to be having these kind of technology infused into it. So it's going to change our lives. It's going to make a big impact. So to all the girls out here that I'm saying, and we have very little women in this field. And so my question to all the girls that are watching this is that, don't you want women to be part of creating this thing that is going to impact our life so much? So, that's my message for the girls. Just think about that.
And on that note, you guys, we are at the 45-minute mark. We're a couple minutes over. I think I could talk to you guys the rest of the morning. You guys have been fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing your expertise and your time with us. Truly, truly appreciate it, you guys. Because we were at that mark, I am not going to show that video, but it is on iowastem.org/CS EdWeek. And it's a great video. It talks to some Iowans about how they're using computer science. I would encourage you to go check it out. And don't forget to look at the other panels and those resources that exist there too. So I just want to let you know, as you leave the Zoom today, you should be prompted to complete a survey for feedback on the panel and this experience. Otherwise, please have a wonderful day. And thank you so much to our panelists. Happy CS Education Week, everybody. Have a great day.